lakum, good news for you. The one for Jannah would be from you, meaning someone who truly follows the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Someone who holds on to the Quran and Sunnah, regardless of the price he may have to pay. That one is for heaven. But then he went on to say that the 999 would all be the people of Gog and Magog. Oh, that means that the subject of Gog and Magog is an awesomely important subject. How many people bother to teach this subject? How many times have you ever heard anyone talking about Gog and Magog? None. I have lived my entire life studying Islam. No one ever spoke on the subject of Gog and Magog to me. None. No teacher, no school, no institution, no Maulana, none. Now that's strange. Because if 999 are going to be the people of Gog and Magog, what it implies is that one people, namely Gog and Magog, one people are going to succeed in getting all of mankind, illa masha'Allah, all of mankind to follow them instead of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, to imitate them, to become carbon copies of them. So even while the man says he's a Muslim, and that one says he's a Hindu, and that one says he's a Christian, and that one says he's a Jew, in fact, they're only holding on to their rice husk when they say they're Muslim or Hindu or Christian or Jew. They have effectively joined the Jamaat. That is the global society, the universal society of a people called Gog and Magog. So this must be an awesomely important subject. And yet strangely, suspiciously, no one ever teaches it. Where are we today? On this 12th of Rabiul Awwal. Where are we today in the Muslim world? Do we still follow the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, or have we abandoned him? This is the subject of our lecture tonight. Let us begin with the very heart and substance of the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He, Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, followed his father Ibrahim. ثُمَّ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ, says the Quran. And then we revealed to thee, O Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, أَنِ اتَّبِعْ مِلَّةَ أَبِيكُمْ Ibrahim, that you also must follow the religion of your father Abraham. وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ, and there is no shirk in that religion. And so the first sunnah of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam is to avoid shirk. This is the foundation of the sunnah of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, to avoid shirk. But he warned before he died. He warned that the time will come when we will be attacked by shirk. And it will be very difficult for us to recognize the shirk. Shirk is not only to worship other than Allah, to worship 2 and 3 and 4 gods. Shirk is not only to worship gods and goddesses. Shirk is not only to worship idols. Shirk is also to play God. Like he played Mass, he played God. And no one playing Satan. Shirk is also to attempt to take over from Allah. And assume for yourself the functions of Allah. He said shirk will one day attack you. But be difficult to recognize it. How difficult? As difficult as it would be to recognize a black ant on a black stone on a dark night. That's how difficult it will be. Who can recognize a black ant on a black stone on a dark night? You could have a PhD from UWI, it make no difference. The only one who can recognize a black ant on a black stone on a dark night is the one who have light to see. But this light doesn't come from a torchlight. This light comes from Allah. It's called Noor. And only if Allah gives Noor to you, only then will you be able to see. Otherwise, you have eyes but you can't see. You have ears but you can't hear. You have hearts but you don't understand. You're just like cattle, says the Quran. Are we living today in a world in which we are enveloped by shirk all around? In which we have been embraced by shirk everywhere? And we are in shirk and yet singing qasida in praise of the Prophet ﷺ. That's the question I ask. Well, let us begin with salat. You cannot perform salat without saying Allahu Akbar every time you move. Every time you move, you have to say Allahu Akbar. Huh? Can you perform salat without saying Allahu Akbar? No. What does Allahu Akbar mean? Huh? Allahu Akbar means Allah is supreme. Allah is sovereign. Allah is supreme. Allah's authority is supreme authority. Allah's law is supreme law. That is Allahu Akbar. If you recognize someone else as sovereign other than Allah, that is shirk. If you recognize someone else's authority as supreme over Allah's authority, that is shirk. If you recognize someone's law as supreme law over Allah's law, that is shirk. Anyone is free to challenge me at any time, stop me and challenge me. Yes, because this lecture is being delivered for generations to come. So challenge me if I'm wrong. And so we established Allah's sovereignty as Muslims. Whenever we took control of a land, we made Allah Akbar in that land, that Allah was recognized as Akbar in that land, wherever we took control of territory. And so Allah was sovereign in that land. And Allah's authority was supreme in that land. And Allah's law was the supreme law in that land. And that land was called Darul Islam. And we appointed a leader who was called a Khalifa. In English, Caliph. He's also known as Amirul Mu'mineen. the leader of the believers. He was also called the Imam. 3 titles: Khalifa, Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam. And that state was called the Khilafah. And in that model of a state, Allah's sovereignty was recognized. Allah's supreme authority was recognized. Allah's law was recognized as supreme law. And Allah's law was enforced. Is Allah recognized as Al-Akbar anywhere on the earth today? No. Not even 1 square inch of Allah's earth today recognizes Allah as Al-Akbar. Not even 1 square inch. Does anyone lose any sleep over that? Does anyone weep over that? Do any tears fall from the eyes over that? That Allah is not recognized as Al-Akbar in even 1 square inch of the earth today? No? We sing in Qasida. The Khilafat was destroyed in 1924. By whom? By those who came before us, the Jews and the Christians. A particular part of the Jewish and Christian world which was white, Euro-Christian and Euro-Jewish. They destroyed the Khilafah. And if you want to read the story of how the Khilafah was destroyed, I have written the history. It is downstairs in my book. But I've found about my Muslim people in Trinidad, they hardly ever read. I travel around the world, and I find Muslims around the world thirsty for knowledge, hungry to read, pursuing me wherever I go for knowledge. But my own people, I have found them needing a wake-up call. We don't know how to get them to read. We have 4 books for you downstairs today. 4, which are free of charge. If you already have it, don't take another copy. But if you have not had a copy, go downstairs and get one out of it. 4 books which are free of charge for you to read tonight. The Khilafah was destroyed in 1924. What was it that replaced the Khilafah? Something that came from those who came before us, the Jews and Christians. What is it called? It is called the modern secular state. What is the modern secular state? The modern secular state is shirk with capital letters. The modern secular state says we do not recognize Allah as Al-Akbar. No. The state is Al-Akbar, not Allah. Sovereignty belongs to the state, not Allah. Supreme authority resides with the state, not with Allah. And the highest law is the law of the state, not Allah's law. Is that shirk? Allah could make it haram, but the state can make it halal. Like they made gambling halal in this country. The PNM in the 1960s, I remember I was a boy growing up, and they passed legislation in this country to make lottery halal. And then they start the national lottery in the 60s. And we had some Muslim ministers of government, and they say, we ain't voting on that. We abstaining. My question is, if this government of which you are a part